Hi, everyone. It's Alec Crawford, your host for the AI Risk Reward podcast. And our special guest today is Dan Nestle, Chief Curiosity Officer at Inquisitive Communications. Welcome, Dan.
Hi there, Alec. It's good to see you. And thank you very much. And, as we were speaking earlier, you're right. It is a kind of a tongue twister, Chief
Yeah, it's
Curiosity
tricky,
Officer.
right? Well,
Yeah.
look, our theme today is resolving AI ethical dilemmas. So I think that's super important for people as we go forward. But let's first kind of rewind back in time and figure out what sparked your initial interest in communications and technology while you were at UPenn.
And it's funny because I didn't really have an interest in comms or
Mm,
marketing per se, like from the get-go. In fact, I was one of those lost Gen X souls who didn't really care about what I was doing as long as I was kind of doing something and just I figured I'd figure it out. And after, from UPenn, I went straight to Japan thinking that I would, spend a year or so in Japan because I minored in Asian studies which is what it was called at the time, and Japanese language. And I always had a fascination with Japan, but that's not like a career skill necessarily. So, but I figured I would go and then come back to grad school just like everybody else I knew, and maybe who knows, go to law school or go to some other run of the mill. I don't mean to say run of the mill because I have tremendous respect for those of us who have completed 3 years of their JD, but still, that's what I thought. And then I got to Japan and I just kind of let the very Japanesey zen of the whole thing take me where I was going to go. And I was in, I was teaching, I was doing a couple other different things. And eventually, after 7 or 8 years in the country and a couple different jobs and, you know, moving more into the business side of life, moving from the countryside to Tokyo and, getting serious about a relationship and, all the kind of the things that you do as you grow up. I started to kind of, go for some bigger corporate jobs. And ultimately I just was never happy. And I tried to figure out why. And I think it was something that happened in about around the turn of the century, 2000, 2001. I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and kind of try to get myself out of the funk by saying, okay, I need to start a business. And I figured the only marketable skill that I really had was writing. I was always a good writer, and I'd never tested myself in, real kind of corporate or advertising or copywriting situations. But what the hell? I just got some business cards created. I wrote copywriter on the business cards, and I started networking in Tokyo to these
wow.
different communities and different groups. And I think within weeks, I had like 7 or 8 clients and made some good contacts. And it was a real exercise in leap of faith type of a thing. But it turns out that I could write, and luckily, my clients liked me and kept me. And that's really where the interest in marketing communications really started, although I didn't really realize that's what I was doing at the time. But over the next couple of years, started getting more clients, doing more things until finally somebody said, why don't you join our company as the manager of marketing and PR?
Cool.
I said, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. Fine, I'm in. And that was 25 years ago almost. And that's kind of the path I've been on ever since.
Wow. And while you were there at that particular job or later, were there any mentors who guided you, or how'd you learn about all this stuff? It wasn't exactly
Well,
like you could ask ChatGPT back then, right?
always, that's right. That's right. I mean, but there was always a mentor or somebody I respected, a good friend who knew what they were doing. And, when as a copywriter, when I started out as a copywriter, there was an amazing copywriter in Tokyo named Tom Boatman, who really took me under his wing and taught me a thing or two about a thing or two. And a couple of lessons that I'll never forget. Like, I think he called it the Aunt Millie test, which is, when you write something about a technical subject, imagine as if you're explaining it to your 85-year-old Aunt Millie across the table. And if she doesn't get it, then rewrite. And he
Great
taught me
one.
how
I
to write.
like that. The
Yeah,
million test.
taught me how to write headlines and stuff. But then when I got into marketing and PR, certainly within the company I was in a global company, and with really experienced marketing leadership and my manager, who was the director of the region, was a really switched on, turned on guy. And right from the get go, like we're talking, I don't know, 2003 and 4 ish. I'm sorry, 2005, 6 ish, something like that. He started, he was a very, like, looked forward to trends pretty well. He was kind of a visionary, and he started to look at, like, how can we start to do this crazy new thing called, like, content marketing? Has anybody heard of this? What's content marketing? Can we try this? And we were among the first companies maybe in the world to do these crazy things called landing pages and lead gen tools. Imagine that, creating a specialized website with a special link, to gather names. I mean, so that was back, 20 something years ago. And I think that set me on the path really for seeing the marriage of technology and communications and marketing that I've never really turned away from.
That's
in
pretty
fact,
cool.
I went
That's
deep
pretty
in
cool.
the other way. Yeah.
So speaking of the Aunt Millie test, I have a test that I use for when I'm interviewing people for a job. It's called the O'Hare test,
O'Hare.
as in the Chicago airport. And the test involves, if you were stuck in O'Hare for 12 hours with this person, would that be okay or not? Because the answer is no, you shouldn't hire that person.
100% agree with that test. It's a great test.
Now you mentioned earlier that there's a book that had a pretty big impact on you around that time. Pitch that to our audience.
It's always hard to narrow down which books had a great impact, and a lot of my experiences learned from people in person. But there was, I mentioned Rich Dad Poor Dad earlier, but that's not the book. When I started with the marketing communications job that I just mentioned, our manager had us read this new book called The New Rules of Marketing and The New Rules of Marketing PR by David Meerman Scott, first edition. And we just ate that thing up. I mean, absorbed it. And I don't think that I ever I don't think I've seen another comprehensive kind of game-changing book for that kind of, especially as a corporate communicator and as a marketer, like that marries, or that puts together marketing and communications in such a way, or such an impactful way. There've been a lot of amazing books since then, but the New Rules painted this whole picture of the customer or the consumer being in charge, and how we could use content, for example, to get their attention and to earn their attention. I think the biggest kind of aha from that book that I can just remember right off the top of my head was David's, the way he framed up PR and kind of newsjacking, he called it, jumping on current issues with your own point of view, as long as it was relevant to your company. And he might have even coined the term newsjacking, although there might be some debate about that. But that was like, wait a second, why aren't we doing this? Why aren't people doing this? Because we were in a press release, pick up the phone, call the reporter age. And in fact, so many people still are, which is surprising to me 20 years later. But, a lot of what he wrote in that book came in and out of vogue, but it's still, I think everything comes full circle. And I know he's up to the 9th or 10th edition or something right now, but highly recommend anybody who is, like, as one of your foundational marketing and PR books, that's one of them. It's not an AI book, and it certainly has nothing to do with my interest in AI necessarily. But it was a formative reading for me.
That's pretty cool. So give us the story leading up to your founding of Inquisitive Communications.
Yeah. I don't think it's an uncommon tale in the world we live in right now. And it was a couple things happening all at once. So first of all, I had some amazing corporate jobs. I was leading communications for 2 huge Japanese companies in succession. And the first one was more of a kind of marketing communications building job. And the second one was for a large company and more towards consumer and durable goods. So it sort of was a more transactional, consumer-driven business. But I was in charge of America's communications for the whole entire business. And we had a really great leadership in Japan who encouraged us to experiment. So during this time, during this whole period, I had been very involved in the PR professional world, like the professional organizations like Page Society or, PRSA or whatever. And really getting into this whole thing that was started to be called Comtech or Comstech. Late 20 teens, I suppose. And, I was on some of those early Comstech committees that were forming in these professional organizations. And, I always saw technology as not a savior for communications, but as a necessary way to progress the profession, but also help us be more relevant and do our job better for our stakeholders, for our CEOs, for our clients, whatever, fill in the blank. Because, technology and PR hadn't been synonymous with one another. Marketing had always led the way. Well, why are we not taking the MarTech stack, for example, and just kind of adapting it for comms? And that's where that conversation really started and continues to evolve. So I started getting to Comtech, got some notoriety within the PR world and certainly within my company as somebody who knew this stuff. So I started gravitating more and more towards, how do we incorporate this into our work? In addition to managing or leading the teams I was leading, et cetera. And I just kept on top of like what's happening in the profession. What do we need to be paying attention to? And as a result of that, I started to get involved with some extracurricular communities, like had nothing to do with my job or with PR, but just like people I respected and people that I knew in the marketing and PR world, thought leaders, gurus, whatever you want to call them, authors, who I had been following. I had the good fortune of meeting a few of them here and there and befriending them. And they invited me into their communities. And I started to really get involved. And probably the most influential among those was Mark Schaefer, who's a good friend. And Mark, Mark and I connect quite often. But I have to say that there's no better convener of open discussion and open people within the marketing world than Mark. And we created this community together. I was part of the founding group of the Rise community. And within that community, we're always talking about what's next. And AI, November 23rd, 2022, the day after ChatGPT came out, we're talking about it in Rise. And with those friends there, I started to really get into it like right from the get-go and started to then think about how we bring it into the company. So I was involved and interested in what we could do with Gen AI from the beginning. I saw so many possibilities, and I should add this whole kind of dimension of my personality / my kind of persona, which is not only relentless curiosity, but like insatiable ADHD. Like I have to go for I see these bright, shiny objects and I want to make the connections. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but it's kind of the fire of innovation. So I started to think about how we can work this stuff into our jobs. Company gave me some room to run for a little while. And I did that. I started to build like AI training within the company I was at, Lixil. I started to build out incorporate AI use cases into our teams. And I started to learn more about it and started to do things a little more strategically and more structurally, blah, 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 et cetera. Until finally, 2 years later, 2024, all the stuff I was doing was wonderful and everything. But from the corporate standpoint, it was kind of like, well, you're the head of communications. This kind of feels like an IT job and a strategy job. I think you need to do your job. And maybe I'm being uncharitable a little bit, but I was kind of like told to stay in my lane a little bit. And as with that happening, and then as the economy wasn't doing us any favors in the firm, they didn't need a high level head of communications for the Americas when there was really not a lot to communicate. So I graciously left the firm, in about a year ago, almost a year ago today, almost a year ago to as we record this. And then I was like, I know a lot about AI, probably more than most people in the profession. I'm really passionate about it. Plus, I have this whole background in strategic communications, and I can run teams and do, check the boxes. I'm going to hang up my consulting shingle and be a consultant now. And that's how, to answer the question, that's how Inquisitive Communications started. And that's how I started on this like solopreneur kind of journey with Inquisitive Comms. And as we go, I keep refining and pivoting and making my offering more and more, I think, focused in the areas that I care about.
Cool. Very cool. Well, that
Long
sounds,
story. I'm sorry.
that sounds,
I should have warned you.
we love stories. That's part of what the show's about, right? And they also want to know, the listeners also want to know, what are you actually using in AI? Like everybody's using ChatGPT, but are there other apps that you're using or AI tools that people should know about, whether on a corporate level or individual level?
So I use for my clients and for myself, and for just about everything I do, I try to invite AI to the table, as Ethan Mollick suggests in his wonderful book, Co-Intelligence. Maybe I should have used that as the book to talk about. But anyhow, his book, Co-Intelligence, tremendous. But always invite AI to the table. It's what I try to do that with just about everything that I do. And in the world of PR and marketing, in which I try to deliver services or advise, there's a huge, wide range of use cases. Whether I use it as an advisor to bounce ideas off of, through to straight up, content creation, and everything in between. That is, those are the kind of basic use cases. I use it to explore ideas and even do some, dare I say, coding, which I've never done before in my life. But now I'm trying to figure out a few different things here and there to make my life easier, or to try to solve certain kind of what ifs, and maybe it would, wouldn't it be great if questions. So I use it all the time. I'm a huge fan of essentially, I have like 2-3 go-to tools that are kind of a linchpin to almost everything I'm doing, but they're by no means the only ones there. But I will use on a regular basis the deep research tools that are within, and I lump this together as one tool, but Perplexity, ChatGPT, and Google Gemini Deep Research. It's one thing. Second thing is Notebook LM. I love Notebook LM to know. I mean, I don't know if there's any way to quantify this love story I'm having with Notebook LM. Just did a webinar about it the other day. And this does feed into the conversation about ethics, by the way. But I love Notebook LM for a number of reasons. And one of the big ones is it's a great place for you to gather all of your own information and mine it relentlessly. But let's put that aside. And the third set of tools would be just the LLMs. But I love Claude. Claude is my brother. If I dare gender it, I think it is. I'm accustomed to working with it, but also I really love the flexibility within Claude projects for writing and for kind of creative activity. I'm not going to use it for generating images or anything like this, but I am I'm a big fan of this kind of deep research, Notebook LM, Claude, Trinity that powers a lot of what I do. Now, there's a lot of other tools out there that I play around with, and I'm getting more and more kind of interested in. I'm really curious and certainly vested, I suppose, in seeing how AI measurement tools start to stack up, like measuring sentiment or measuring brand tracking and things like this. But so far, I haven't been diving too deep into that.
So going back to the theme of the show, which is resolving AI ethical dilemmas, like the ethical considerations of AI are vast and complex. You're dealing with corporate leaders. Like, how do you approach these challenges?
I think it's impossible for one person to address ethics full stop, right? It's such a huge area. And, PR people come at it from a certain way, and marketers from another way, legal people from another way. But for me, it's about, okay, the thing that I'm trying to do, or that I'm trying to convince my clients to do with AI, is that thing ethical? Like, is that process ethical? Is there a an objection to doing what I'm doing? And it's easier if I kind of give you a little more of a concrete, view of what that is. My passion for 20 years plus has always been content. I started as a copywriter, and when Gen AI first came out, I was like, this is amazing. White page syndrome is over. It's I can start my drafts with AI, and this is the best thing ever, because like it supercharges the process for me, right? So fine. But that was just 2022. Now you go forward now, and the capability of what we can do with any of the LLMs, really, to either mimic or kind of, I suppose, be the doppelganger for any particular individual or brand or anything. And I'm not going to talk about deep fakes or anything like that. That's kind of a different, that's clearly unethical and clearly wrong, right? But let's just look at the section I'm dealing with, is content creation. So, is it ethical, and is it right if I use AI to write my stuff and then put my name as the byline? And that's the fundamental question. Are you comfortable doing that or not? And do you see an ethical problem there? And it's a very interesting conversation to have, because it certainly can be unethical in some circumstances, but it can be perfectly ethical in others. You can mitigate ethical problems through transparency, which is normally the inoculation against ethical issues. But even then, it's really about, do you always have to claim to the detail how much you're using AI and how much you're not, et cetera? And to me, the way that where I've landed on this is, it just comes down to, are you accurately representing your original thought or not? Can you go out there and say, this is what I think. This is my stuff. It's no different than if I ask a ghostwriter to do something for me, or a freelancer. So do I have to claim every time I use a freelancer? Do I have to claim that a freelancer did this for me? I mean, the answer is no. Clearly no. When a book is ghostwritten, you often see, like, with so-and-so, and you give a little credit. That's a book. Okay. It's a different situation where you're trying to create something new and something original. But if it's your day-to-day content, if it's your newsletter, if it's your blog posts, if it's these kind of, we can call it marketing or PR related communications, written communications, what is the harm in using a copywriter to do that, or a freelancer to do that? And there's no harm. So when you use AI to do that, though, I think people get a little bit crazy with the feeling like either they feel guilty because there's an unfair advantage, or they feel like, it's not written as well, or, people can see through it, or, they feel like the speed is just unnatural. And I get that. But all of those can be addressed by whatever your process is and whatever your comfort level is. But certainly you don't want to put out, bad content. That's where you have to be the human at the end, and sort of, make sure that you're putting a nice layer of quality control and review, which also, by the way, helps with your ethical dilemma. But, fundamentally, are you misrepresenting yourself or not when you put this stuff out there?
Yeah, I really like that. I like that. And more broadly, for CEOs considering integrating AI into their business strategy, what advice would you give them at this point?
It depends on like how and where that you want to implement AI, or it's
No,
not a matter of
they're
want.
just getting started, right?
They're just getting
Companies
started
not
with
using
AI, right?
AI, they blocked everything. Now they want to allow it. Like, what should they do?
So, man, this is such a hot topic, right? Right now, and I think there's a couple of ways to approach this, or a couple ways to
Hmm.
peel this onion. Like the first thing is, are your people aware or skilled up enough with the tools that are available to you? And um, your workforce really has to be aware, at least, or has to be upskilled enough to take advantage of AI. And that's going to mean different things to different teams and different functions and different people. I think it's a big mistake for corporations to kind of, you know, to pick a winner, like to say, like, okay, we're going all in on Copilot.
Right.
Hopefully
Yeah.
not,
Don't
but
do that.
don't do that. Uh, and so many companies are, and it's such a disadvantage, and it's really ultimately a little bit demoralizing, I think, for a lot of employees who are just like forced to use one single tool when they know that this whole world out there is out. Well, the ones who know that, boy, oh, this is just scratching the surface. I can do so much more. But the very first thing is, you know, get the basic skills, have people, understand what the lexicon is, the terminology, and not from a technical standpoint. Don't approach this like it's an IT tool or a piece of software that's being rolled out. It is a change management program. It is an educational program. It is a cultural program. It is in fact, a flexible work or way of working program. Now that's gets a little tricky because you know AI itself in somebody's hands helps productivity, or it helps efficiency or something like this, right? So great, you're going to get productivity and efficiency gains, but that doesn't say anything about ways of working, or it doesn't say anything about innovation, and it doesn't say anything about where is this going. It's as if you're doing Six Sigma or something. What CEOs who are considering implementing now, or who are kind of on the road, would do themselves a huge favor by taking a step back and addressing the larger organizational kind of impact of what AI is going to do. And I'll put it to you this way, and these are not my words, although I want them to be. And I'm going to give credit to Chris Perry, who used to be at Weber Shandwick and has now started his own firm. But Chris Perry said to me on the phone the other day, he said, every single person in your company has a PhD in their pocket. And I've said similar things, but I love the way he put that, right? If you have a PhD in your pocket, if every single person in the company has a PhD in your pocket, what does that mean? How can you reasonably expect everybody to
Yeah.
stay on the same path? So it's a big, big question, and there's a lot there. And I don't know if I answered your question well, but
decent
yeah,
answer. Decent answer. Look, everybody's trying to figure that out right now,
yeah,
right? And our angle is we agree, like you should have access to multiple models, but also look in a corporate environment, especially if you've got customer data. You got to do governance
that's
around
right,
the data, risk management around that.
for sure.
There's still rules, so you
Yeah,
got to have regulatory compliance, and then you better have cybersecurity or you're toast, right? So
100%.
all important things.
That plays heavily into the ethical questions as well.
Yeah.
And it's why I like some of the tools I like, because you can do things privately and without worry about leaking. But even then, you want to tell people how to properly sanitize information before they use a tool, or use their head, use common sense. Most of the time, most ethical questions are common sense questions.
Yeah. So we're heading to the last section of the show, which is a lightning round called underrated or overrated. And I'm gonna name something.
Okay.
You tell me if you think it's underrated and overrated, and maybe a sentence of why. You can also choose fairly rated if you want, although that's much less fun, of course. So we're gonna kick it off with because you live near Princeton, New Jersey, PJ's Pancake House.
Overrated. PJ's is overrated.
Yeah, and there are a lot of it. It's like a chain now.
There's a lot of them. PJ's is like this octopus that keeps on growing, or like a hydra. I don't know. The original PJ's on Princeton campus, or right across on Nassau Street, was always excellent. but like everything else, as soon as it becomes a chain, you're getting some problems, right? So we now have PJs. Oh, gosh, there's got to be 7 or 8 of them. I live right near Princeton. There's got to be 7 or 8 of them within 2-3 miles of my house, and overrated.
Overrated. The author Malcolm Gladwell, underrated or overrated?
Depends on the book. But
let's go with Moneyball.
I haven't read Moneyball. Well, Moneyball was that him? Was that Gladwell? I think so,
yeah. Got turned into a movie. I could be wrong.
I don't think that was him. But
okay.
Regardless, if we go with Tipping Point, fairly rated, right? If we go with, was it Blink? Was that the one where?
Blink, yeah.
I think that's sort of maybe overrated. But on the whole, I'd say he's fairly rated, Malcolm, Mr. Gladwell, in general. Although I occasionally listen to the Revisionist History podcast, which is, it's just so wonderful hearing him speak. But I don't always agree with it. So, that's neither here nor there.
The influence of dark social platforms like Discord, underrated or overrated?
Underrated, for sure. Yeah. Dark social is massive, and with the increased fracturing of audiences, there's more and more dark social activity. And when we say dark social, we don't mean evil, although that's where evil does take place, right? But there's a lot of great stuff happening on dark social, and Discord is a big example. We, as communicators, as marketers, and brands, need to understand this.
Yeah, I think you might have given it away in the show, but the Rise community, underrated or overrated?
Underrated, man. The Rise community is fantastic. It's like, it's a hidden gem. It is just, for paying members, the quality of people in the community, but also, with Mark's direct involvement and bringing in incredible guest speakers all the time. Best value on the web.
Wow. What's the membership cost?
It's like $20 a month. Same thing as
$20 a month. Wow, that sounds like a bargain. Wow.
It is.
I'm gonna sign up my growth marketing associate as soon as we're done.
For sure.
AI-driven personalization in customer service, underrated or overrated?
I always get kind of itchy when I hear the word personalization. Like, what does that mean exactly? I think it's underrated in the sense that it's still unknown, and it's going to be tremendously impactful. But I think personalization in terms of the tools that are developed is really underrated and will be, outrageously impactful. In fact, it's sort of the core of what I'm offering these days. So I'm hoping that that personalization really kind of takes hold a little more.
Yeah, I feel like we're kind of scratching the surface. So I might say, overrated today, underrated in the future, or something like that, right? Visiting the Jersey Shore for vacation, underrated or overrated?
I'm going to give him a mealy-mouthed answer here and say it depends on which part of the shore you go to.
All right, Love Ladies.
What's that?
Love Ladies.
Love
LBI.
Ladies. LBI. Oh, LBI is underrated. I mean, LBI is.
There we go.
It's underrated, except the traffic is a mitigator. So if you're,
let's go for a week.
It may not be worth the 3-4 hours of traffic to get onto the island.
Not for the day. Got to be for vacation. Yeah.
But there are some lovely, lovely places on the Jersey Shore, reminiscent of the Carolinas, and there are some places that are just like you would expect from the classic MTV show.
Exactly. Gym, tan, laundry.
Yep.
The popularity of minimalist design trends, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. I like minimalist design. It's a purely personal taste thing, but I like minimalist design. It's just so, it's so kind of clear and crisp. It really, as long as minimalist design enhances the UX, like makes the user experience easier, then I'm all for it.
All about the UX.
But don't let it get in the way of your personal aesthetic and your brand. Like, you have to find that balance. Don't like suddenly go zazen if you think that you're actually a sort of loud and brash brand. You got to go be faithful to your brand no matter what.
The Museum of Modern Art in New York City, underrated or overrated?
I'm going overrated on the Museum of Modern Art. I haven't been there in years. The MoMA, but modern art is such a subjective thing, and I'm much more of a classicist, romanticist myself. I like the romantics and the
You're
realists.
going to the Met.
I'm going to the Met.
Yeah,
That's
got
right.
it. Gamification and workplace training, underrated or overrated?
Those are two different things. Gamification is underrated. Workplace training is overrated um, in its
Well, the
current
idea
form.
was using gamification in your workplace training, which
Then
some
it's
places are starting to do.
underrated. Then
Yeah.
and as long as we're the workplace training, the gamification isn't like you know watch this video and then take this quiz. Like that's not gamification. You got to really do it right.
Yeah, yeah. No, there was one of the big four that basically was doing virtual reality headsets for like training. Like, okay, go to this place and then do this and interact with these people and
I,
vote on that or whatever, all while you're, wearing the VR goggles. So,
when
yeah,
it's experiential,
right.
it's excellent.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then last but not least, the TV series Silo, underrated or overrated?
Underrated. Even though it's like superbly rated, I still think it's underrated. It is so good. I was a Hugh Howey fan. Hugh Howey's the original author of the series of the books, and I picked them up. Gosh, I think I was still living abroad at the time, and I think I just devoured them in a weekend or two. Like I
Wow.
ignored my family and just went through, just got obsessed. I love the books. The series is doing a great job with it. Worth a watch.
Awesome. Well, Dan, thanks for coming on the show. This has been fun. Dan Nestle, Chief Curiosity Officer at Inquisitive Communications.
You just say founder.
Thanks for coming on the show, Dan.
Thanks, Alec. It's great to see you.
All right.